The new Marvel Knockout mode is a great way to earn all the superpower related punch cards, netting you boatloads of experience points. You can even earn the explosive weapons elimination punch card with Dr. Doom and Iron Man's abilities. This video is designed to help you crush the competition and make the most of your time playing this mode. I'll also be leaving some useful info for this LTM in the video description, and I spent a lot of time with the mode trying to figure out all the intricacies of the different powers, but there's probably something I missed, so feel free to give your own tips in the comments. We're going to go through all the powers and how they interact with other abilities and how to use them best. Also, in this mode, each team will have identical sets of powers split across the different team members, so the matchups are always fair and winnable if you know how to use your abilities. As an example, if I have Iron Man's Repulsors, Storm's Whirlwind Blast, and the Mjolnir Strike, so does one of my opponents, and this is also the case for whatever power sets my teammates have. In each round, you're given one pair of primary powers and two variable secondary powers. First, we'll cover the primary abilities, the ones that appear on the top and bottom of the abilities in the HUD. There are 4 in total and all can be useful. We'll start with Iron Man's Repulsors. These lock on to opponents with a blue target icon at medium to short range, dealing a constant stream of 20 damage hits. It provides great chip damage for supporting teammates, but it's best to avoid 1v1 fights when you have this power. It's also good for finishing off damaged opponents and for hitting opponents that are in flight or trying to be evasive. The flight ability does have a cooldown, so save and use it to avoid Thor's Mjolnir Strike, Dr. Doom's abilities, and especially melee opponents. It also seems like the flight ability makes you immune to Venom's smash and grab, but more on that power later. And finally, you won't be able to regenerate health over time with this power. Now let's talk about Dr. Doom's Gauntlets. These hit harder than Iron Man's Repulsors, 45 damage per hit versus the 20 from the Repulsors, but they fire slower. They also damage all opponents near the site of impact versus Iron Man's single target damage. These do not lock on, so they are best used on grounded targets, and they're great for supporting melee teammates engaged with multiple opponents. Dr. Doom's flight ability is similar to Iron Man's, the only difference is that this one is not as good because it does not provide sustained flight in the air, and it does unfortunately have a cooldown timer. Just like Iron Man, this power does not grant health regeneration. Our third primary power is Wolverine's Claws. These make you a melee or brawler class. You can swing claws mid-air or on the ground. Airstrikes can hit multiple clustered enemies in a full 360-degree radius around your character for significant damage. However, it does less single target damage than the other melee power, She-Hulk's Fists. Wolverine's jump ability has no cooldown, so use it as much as you need to evade opponents or to close the gaps between. Look up while using it to fly upward rather than forward. Try to avoid trading blows with She-Hulk opponents as her fists hit harder than Wolverine's claws. I recommend hunting down and eliminating ranged power opponents like Iron Man Repulsor opponents, and also try to support your ranged powered teammates that are being focused by melee opponents. Wolverine's Claws enables health regeneration over time, and you can also dodge with the left trigger. That's the button that you use to aim down sights, but I honestly haven't found the dodge ability to be that useful in this mode. As a pro tip, try to position yourself in the air slightly above opponents and use your slash ability mid-air to hit all enemies below and near you, while also avoiding damage from She-Hulk opponents that are on the ground. Finally, we have She-Hulk's Fists. They hit harder than Wolverine's Claws, but you'll be less mobile. Jump twice and use primary attack to slam and stun opponents that are on the ground. Unlike Wolverine, She-Hulk can only punch while on the ground, dealing massive damage to opponents in front of her. Her jump ability has no cooldown, so you can use it to avoid powers that only hit grounded opponents, like Thor's Mjolnir Strike. However, the ground slam ability that you can use in midair does have a short cooldown. This is the best class for direct fights and trading blows with melee opponents, but has trouble catching and eliminating evasive ranged opponents. The best strategy for She-Hulk's Fist is to use the jump slam ability on unsuspecting opponents and then begin pummeling them while they're trying to recover. It's also good to aid teammates that are being focused by melee opponents. This ability enables health regeneration over time and allows dodging, just like Wolverine's Claws. Both She-Hulk's Fist and Wolverine's Claws are, in my opinion, the better of these 4 primary powers, so whoever has them will need to do the heavy lifting of the round. Now let's move on to the secondary abilities and which abilities they complement. Secondary abilities are those that appear on the left and right side of the abilities in the HUD. There are 8 in total, and these first 4 always take up the left secondary power slot. First is the Silver Surfer's Board, which is a great ability for ranged power users, as it can put distance between yourself and melee opponents. It pairs very well with the Unibeam ability, which I'll talk about later, but you can use the board to position yourself high above opponents, cancel the board with the right bumper, which would be the same button you use for the right-sided secondary ability or the Unibeam if you have it, and then use the Unibeam while still up in the air to get an easy shot on opponents below. It's also nice for melee power users to disengage from fights and recover health. Finally, you can also use this ability to quickly move and evade enemy Unibeams or projectiles. Our second ability is Groot's Bramble Shield. It puts you in a hamster ball of sorts that protects against immediate damage and heals you and teammates around you until it's broken. You can use it mid-fight to absorb a Unibeam blast or energy bomb. You can also use it to put some distance between you and your opponents while at the same time healing any health you've lost. Overall, this ability can heal up to 120 health in a single use. If you get this ability, and especially if we get it with a class that allows you to heal like Wolverine's Claws or She-Hulk's Fists, you should always be trying to escape battles alive so that you can regenerate any lost health, and then once healed, re-engage the fight. This can really help your team win by denying the opponent team points. As a counter, I found that both She-Hulk's Slam and Thor's Mjolnir Strike seem to instantly destroy this shield. Our third power is Storm's Whirlwind Blast. Shortly after being activated, it'll block ranged sources of damage, redirect projectiles like Dr. Doom's powers, and fling away opponents that get too close. It's great with ranged primary powers as it can repel melee opponents that are trying to get close, but it's slightly less useful when it's paired with a melee primary power. It's great for blocking Dr. Doom powers, Repulsors, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think if you time it just right, it can even block the Uni-Beam. Finally, we have Black Panther's Kinetic Armor. When active, it reduces the amount of damage you take by about 30% and releases a blast dealing 50 damage once the ability ends. It's great for using with melee powers like She-Hulk's Fists or Wolverine's Claws. Just activate it before engaging an opponent to take less damage and also deal some extra burst damage. You probably won't be using it to deal extra damage with any of the ranged primary powers, but it's still good for that extra damage reduction. One of the best power combos you can get is with one of the melee primary powers, this shield ability, as well as the Venom Smash and Grab. If you get this combo, try activating the armor before using the Smash and Grab to pull an opponent to your position. Then begin wailing on them and the kinetic armor will trigger, dealing extra burst damage. This final segment will be for the 4 right-sided secondary powers. First is Venom Smash and Grab. It sends a slingshot hand that deals 60 damage to opponents it hits and pulls them to your location like a harpoon gun. It's great with melee-based powers, but not as great with ranged powers. Again, this with the kinetic armor and one of the melee powers makes for some of the highest single target burst damage in the mode. As a counter, I found that this ability does not seem to work against opponents using Iron Man's flight ability. Second, we have Thor's Mjolnir Strike. It calls down Mjolnir to tear through structures until it hits solid ground. Opponents that are on solid ground and caught in the radius will take 100 damage and be flung up in the air. It combos well with ranged powers as it can damage and hit away melee opponents that get too close. If you have this with Storm's Whirlwind, it makes it pretty easy to keep melee opponents at bay. Again, it only works on grounded opponents, so opponents in the air won't be hit or damaged by it. It's also decent if you have a melee primary power as an extra source of damage. The third is Dr. Doom's Energy Bomb, which is a large blast radius bomb that deals 90 damage and flings enemies away. It can be held until releasing the activation button, but it's one of the less powerful abilities. It's still good for dealing burst damage on clustered opponents, and also it sets structures on fire, so that's pretty cool. Last but certainly not least is Iron Man's Uni-Beam. It's probably the best secondary ability. It fires a laser that can penetrate a few layers of built structures and can hit opponents at very long ranges, dealing 150 damage to anyone it hits. Like I said, it's easily one of the best abilities regardless of if you have a melee or ranged primary power. Use this power as often as you can. As previously stated, this ability combos extremely well with the Silver Surfer's board. That covers all of our abilities and all the info that you'll need to best use them against your opponents in this LTM. If you have any specific comments or questions, you can reach out to me in the comment section. If you want to see more great content, I'll leave a few good videos at the end of this video, or you can head over to my channel where all those videos are hanging out. And if you're new, consider subscribing. You're helping me feed my cat. Her name's Marshmallow. Have a great day. If you're here today, have a great Saturday and a great weekend. And as always, thanks for watching.